So corporate tax, now let's get into the corporate tax specific to UAE. This corporate tax is generally levied on the profits of the businesses or corporations. Value-added tax was on the revenue or turnover, but the corporate tax is on the profits, not on the revenue alone. So profits are generally the turnover or sales minus expenses will give you the profit amount. Of course, we'll have certain adjustments to this profit before we calculate the tax to be paid, corporate tax to be paid. But the bottom line is that the tax, corporate tax is generally calculated or paid on the profits of the businesses. This is also called as corporate income tax, CIT, in some other countries. It is also called as business profit tax. In addition to comply with the requirements of OECD, UAE also has brought in this corporate tax because of implementation of this corporate tax, the UAE will get additional funds, okay? And that will in turn be utilized for development of the infrastructure, facilities for the residents, and also for the development of the country and economy. So the corporate tax will definitely boost the economy of the country, and it will be helpful for the country as a whole and for the residents, of course, who are there in the UAE. However, the UAE and Dubai in specific is generally been considered as a global hub for most of the businesses. Okay, so UAE does not want to lose that particular status. In order to address that or handle that, UAE came up with a very competitive corporate tax. If you know, it is just 9% on the profits after adjustments. This is generally considered as the lowest tax rate across the globe, leaving a couple of other small economies. So in order to retain that particular global leadership of being the global hub for companies or businesses to incorporate their businesses, they came up with the competitive corporate tax in UAE. So let's quickly look at the timelines that have been happened so far with respect to corporate tax in UAE. Initially, the Ministry of Finance, they have released a public consultation document on 31st January 2022, way long back, offering or asking the public, general public, to give their opinion on the public consultation document. So they're given enough amount of time for us to get back to them, and then afterwards, they came up with a decree law somewhere in December, on 9th December 2022. So public consultation document was not considered as a law as such because it was only a consultation document. But this, the decree law that has been released, is actually is a law. It is an act that's going to come in for sure, and is already been enacted in October itself. And afterwards, or on the same date, rather, they have also released frequently asked questions, which actually give a little bit a generic idea or general idea of the decree law and corporate taxes. And later in January 2023, on 16th January 2023, they have also released a cabinet resolution with respect to the decree law. I'm not really sure how many of you are aware of it, but there was a resolution released. In this particular resolution, they've only given one or two topics. In specific, they are giving the base amount of profit, which will be considered for 0 taxation and 9% taxation, that we will see in the later slides. Afterwards, the Ministry of Finance should come up with various other cabinet decisions. As I mentioned, the major ones are with respect to the individual income, how the individual income will be taxed. Do they consider any part of the income for consideration of or for the taxation of corporate tax? And another important, most awaited cabinet decision is with respect to the free zones incomes. They have given a rate to be implemented or rate to be applied, but on which all incomes or which all profits, those respective rates will be applicable. So that definition is not being released. So these are the two major areas where we require the cabinet decision or executive regulations to understand it well. So this being the limitation, so we will discuss what have been released or issued in decree law as well as in FAQs in our further slides. So when is it going to be applied for? They clearly mentioned that UAE corporate tax will be applicable for the financial years on or after 1st June 2023. So the applicability of corporate tax is linked to your financial year. So this financial year may vary from company to company. Generally, it has been mentioned in the registration documents of the company when you incorporate a company. So most of the businesses in UAE, generally they follow January to December, just calendar year, as their financial year. But some other companies, they have their own specific calendar years, which could be from July to June, or October to September, or April to March. Some of the Indian companies, they have their financial year as April to March also, because back in India, so they have April to March as their financial year. In order to sync with that, some companies prefer to have April to March. Since I mentioned that most of the companies have January to December as their financial year, if your company's financial year is January to December, for your company, the corporate tax will be effective or will be applicable from 1st January 2024 onwards. So first financial year for which the corporate tax is applicable for you is 1st January 24 to 31st December 2024. So before we get into the other main concepts of the law, let's quickly understand the geographic form or various forms and legal forms that are currently in place in UAE. UAE, in geography wise, it's been divided into mainland, free zone. Of course, we also have some entities in the form of offshore, where there's no physical place for them for incorporate. And these free zones, as we know, they are further bifurcated into the financial free zones and other than financial free zones, the other free zones. Why we are talking about this? Because the rules that are mentioned in corporate tax are going to be specific to each of these particular geographies. So that is the reason why we just need to understand this. And similarly, the legal structure or legal forms of the entities in UAE are different. Depending upon the form or legal form of that particular organization or entity, the rules in corporate tax are going to be different. So just to say, limited liability company, which are called as LLC, which actually the most of the significant portion of the forms organizations are in UAE. Free zone companies, public share holding companies, sole proprietorship, private shareholding companies, branch of foreign companies, civil companies, branch of UAE business company, partnership, representative office, foundation or trust, freelancers. So these are the various forms of organizations that are in place in UAE currently. So now we are getting into the basic concept of the decree law. These are the some of the crucial or critical areas, understanding which is more important for us to decide the applicability of corporate taxes for a particular business.